Chapter 28. Dinner is served. After leaving Connor's room, the two friends made their way down the grand staircase toward the dining hall. Never one to resist a bit of flair, Connor vaulted onto the banister and slid down with effortless grace, landing neatly on his feet at the bottom. "Trust you to do that," Nick said, shaking his head, a grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "What?" Connor replied with mock innocence. "I can't help it if I like staying on my feet. Besides, it used to help me get home faster when I was roof hopping." Nick snorted, the memory flashing vividly before him. "Yeah, right up until your mum told you to pack it in because the neighbours thought a burglar was climbing over their roofs." Connor rolled his eyes, though a grin still crept across his face. I know, but come on, it was exhilarating. No one got seriously hurt." He knew perfectly well that his parkour habits skirted danger, but the thrill always outweighed the risk. Moving freely through the world made him feel alive, especially when chaos threatened to close in. The way his body twisted and flowed across obstacles wasn't just skill, it was art. In a world where danger was never far away, being able to move like that wasn't only freedom, it was survival. Once they reached the dining room, Nick and Connor found Anne and James already seated at the expansive round table, an elegant structure of dark oak designed to seat up to 16 guests. Yet, it was more than a table, it was a piece of precision engineering. Anchored seamlessly into the marble floor, the centre housed a hidden dumbwaiter that rose soundlessly, revealing a motorized, lazy Susan. It rotated in slow, graceful turns, each dish gliding within easy reach as if guided by invisible hands. The air was alive with the aroma of maize cooking. Spiced steam rose from sizzling platters, stir-fried vegetables glistening with sesame oil, glazed meats shimmering with honey glaze, bowls of jasmine rice, soft as clouds, and plump dumplings releasing bursts of savoury perfume. The warm light reflecting off the polished table lent the room a comforting glow, a far cry from the chaos they'd survived earlier that day. Nick and Connor took their seats. Nick glanced across at Anne and James. "You two all right?" he asked, a thread of concern weaving through his tone. "We're doing okay," Anne replied, lowering her phone. A glowing floor plan of the mansion hovered faintly above the screen before fading out as she met his eyes. "Still getting used to all this. The place is overwhelming, but in the best possible way." James, half absorbed in his phone, gave a small nod without looking up. "We've still not seen every room," he said, "just the unused bedrooms, the rooftop helipad, and William's office. And, as Apollo keeps reminding us, that one's off limits." "Only Nick's allowed in there," Anne added, narrowing her eyes slightly. "You mentioned your uncle gave you a job at his company, and that you had to sign an NDA? Nick nodded, keeping his tone even. "Yeah. Can't talk about it. Not even a little. It's part of the deal. And sometimes I might get called away with no warning. I never know how long I'll be gone." "That's fine by us," James said easily, setting his phone aside. "As long as you still find time to hang out when you're around." A quiet wave of gratitude warmed Nick's chest. For all the secrecy and danger that surrounded him, moments like this, ordinary, human, safe, felt like oxygen. "Thanks, James," he said softly. "I'd like that too. Being here, in London, it's not all awful. Maybe we can even have a bit of fun while it lasts." As the conversation carried on, Anne suddenly perked up, her ears catching the steady rhythm of footsteps approaching from the kitchen. "Guys, stand up. Now, Mum's coming," she hissed under her breath. All four of them shot up from their chairs in perfect sync, like seasoned soldiers reacting to a command. No one needed an explanation. They all knew the rule. In keeping with Chinese tradition, no one sat until the senior matriarch of the household had taken her place. A hush fell over the dining room, broken only by the soft hum of lazy Susan idling at the table's centre. The footsteps drew nearer. Then May entered. She was a vision of dignified grace, gone were the fireproof apron and welding goggles in her culinary battle armour. In their place, she wore an elegant green cheongsam, the silk clinging to her form with flawless tailoring. Her purple hair was swept into a precise bun, accentuating the clean lines of her neck and jaw. The air itself seemed to shift as she stepped inside. Composed, regal, yet warmly human. Without a word, May crossed to her designated seat, the one nearest the kitchen door, and lowered herself gracefully into the chair. Only then did she raise her chin and give a small nod to the others. They sat in unison. Clearing her throat softly, May addressed the table. "Normally, I would have Anne and James bring the food out from the kitchen, but Apollo, ever insistent, convinced me to try the dumbwaiter." There was a faint glimmer of amusement in her eyes, a rare softness that softened the formality of her voice. Right on cue, Apollo's calm tone resonated through the room. "Ms. Shang, your dinner will arrive in 3, 2, 1. With a low mechanical hum, the table's centre opened. Rising smoothly from beneath was a circular platform laden with steaming dishes, the aromas instantly enveloping the room. The lazy Susan engaged, turning with elegant precision to display the feast. Tonight's spread was a masterpiece of colour and craft. Golden chicken balls glistening beneath a glaze of sweet and sour sauce. Fragrant egg-fried rice dotted with carrots and bright green broccoli florets. Sweet peas shimmering in sesame oil. The steaming mushroom chow mein was infused with garlic and soy. Crisp spring rolls arranged beside a bowl of Vietnamese dipping sauce, whose citrus tang hung temptingly in the air. Connor's eyes lit up, his hand twitching instinctively towards a spring roll, but one subtle glance from Anne stopped him in his tracks. She didn't even have to speak. Her expression alone reminded him, respect before appetite. He withdrew his hands and folded them neatly in his lap, his posture straight, doing his best to honour the custom, despite the mouth-watering aromas swirling around him. May began to serve herself with quiet precision. She selected 2 perfectly rounded chicken balls with her chopsticks, added a scoop of rice with a porcelain spoon, then chose 3 spring rolls and a spoonful of peas. Every motion was deliberate and graceful, a well-rehearsed dance performed countless times before. Once her plate was set, she lifted a spring roll and took a single, thoughtful bite. She ate slowly, savouring the flavours. After a moment's silence, she nodded once, satisfied. Only then did she speak. "You may eat." Nick, Connor, Anne and James sat back in their chairs together, their eyes fixed on the enticing array of dishes gliding gently around the lazy Susan. The vibrant colours and rich aromas of May's carefully prepared meal stirred their appetites, with each of them leaning forward with growing anticipation, Though their plates differed in portion and preference, some piled high, others arranged with neat restraint, there was one constant. Everyone took a generous helping of May's perfectly cooked fried rice. The grains shimmered subtly under the warm light, flecked with vegetables and herbs, promising flavour in every bite. As they settled back into their seats, the room quickly filled with cheerful conversation and the rhythmic clink of chopsticks and spoons. When Nick took his first bite, the crisp shell of the chicken ball gave way to tender meat, the sweet and sour sauce bursting across his tongue. It was a world apart from the greasy takeaway boxes of his childhood. The taste was the real thing, food made with care, precision, and love. Glancing across the table, Nick caught the look of wonder on Connor's face. His friend's eyes were alight with delight as he chewed, and then he blurted out, "This is incredible! I can't believe how delicious these taste. I've never had anything like it." Nick grinned, his chest swelling with quiet gratitude for May's cooking. "I know, right? After this, I might never go near a takeaway again. If I'd known about her cooking back in Stevenage, I'd have been a loyal customer from day one." May, who had been eating with her usual calm grace, placed her chopsticks down and dabbed her lips with a napkin before turning her attention to Connor. "So, Connor," she said, her voice warm but composed, "since you'll be staying with us for a while, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself?" Connor paused mid-chew, then set down his utensils carefully. The table's attention shifted to him. A flicker of nerves passed through his eyes, but he quickly steadied himself. "Sure," he began. "I'm Connor Rue Jenkins, born on the 22nd of January 2280. I live in Biggleswade, the same town as Nick. My parents run a double business." "What kind of business?" Anne asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. A proud smile spread across Connor's face. "My dad takes commissions for custom anime figurines, real passion projects. He's got an incredible eye for detail. People from all over send him their designs or favourite characters, and he brings them to life." Nick nodded, remembering the times he'd watched Connor's father at work, steady hands painting fine brushstrokes onto a figurine's armour or a tiny glint in an anime girl's eye. "My mum," Connor continued, "runs a bakery that fuses Japanese and British traditions. She's always experimenting, matcha sponge with English custard, tempura-filled pastries, even sausage rolls glazed with miso and served with wasabi mayo." Nick laughed. "Oh, I remember those. Strong stuff, but somehow it worked. It was as if Britain and Japan had engaged in a food fight and then decided to share the trophy." Connor chuckled and turned back to May. "She's really creative. People travel miles to try her bakes. She's constantly looking for ways to honour her roots while still making something new." May nodded approvingly. "She sounds like a woman of both culture and courage. Innovation in the kitchen takes more than skill. It requires heart." A gentle pause followed, not of awkwardness, but of shared respect. Then James, ever the one to lift the tone, leaned forward with a grin. "Dude, with that background, you're not just Nick's best friend. You're basically the protagonist of your own show." Connor let out a bashful laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Let's just hope it's not a tragedy arc." Anne smirked. "Nah, definitely a slice-of-life comedy, with the occasional emotional gut punch." "I bet you've had your fair share of trouble from some people," James said, leaning forward, his voice calm but curious as he tried to understand more about Connor's experiences. Connor let out a long, weary sigh, the weight of memory shadowing his face. If you mean from people who hate the UAA, then yeah, we definitely have. 2 or 3 times a week, there's always someone trying to drive me or my mum out of town just because we're Japanese. Well, half Japanese in my case. But apparently, that's enough to offend a rather pathetic group of twats. He winced, glancing quickly towards May. Pardon my language. Don't worry about it, Connor, May replied with a gentle smile, her eyes carrying quiet understanding. My family's faced the same kind of threats over the years. We've learnt to deal with people like that in our own way. It's not just at home either, Connor continued, his tone softening as he looked down at his plate. Sometimes it happens at school, too. He turned to Nick, gratitude shining in his expression. But I've always had Nick watching my back when things got rough. Nick nodded, his voice steady but filled with warmth. Always. Doesn't matter what the odds are. If someone comes for you, they go through me first. A shared smile passed between them, unspoken yet heavy with meaning. Their bond wasn't merely friendship, it was forged in hardship, tested by fire. Getting cornered was why you started doing parkour, right? Nick said, his tone lightening. Connor chuckled and gave a half shrug. Something like that. It definitely helped when things got tense. Nick turned to the others, a teasing grin playing on his lips. You've got to see it to believe it. Connor's fast, blink, and you'll miss him. He can scale walls, vault over fences, slide under barriers, dodge punches like he's starring in a kung fu film. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, Connor laughed, though he clearly enjoyed the compliment. But hey, I'll take it. The room joined in his laughter, and for a brief, precious moment, the world outside, the danger, the fear, the weight of the unknown, simply didn't exist. In its place was warmth, laughter, and belonging. Then May glanced at the time and cleared her throat gently. We should probably get back to our meals. Wouldn't want all this wonderful food to go cold, would we? Good call, Nick said, reaching for the Lazy Susan as it spun lazily past, his eyes locked on the last few chicken balls. Right, let's finish this feast. The group leaned forward again, plates refilling, conversation flowing freely. Laughter echoed off the polished walls, punctuated by the soft clink of cutlery and the hum of gentle lo-fi music from the mansion speakers. The earlier tension of the day melted away, replaced by something purer, the simple joy of delicious food and good company. As the evening wore on, the platters emptied, leaving behind only crumbs, empty bowls, and satisfied sighs. Nick leaned back, one hand resting on his full stomach. May, that was incredible. Honestly, thank you. Same here, Connor added, grinning as he patted his belly. I don't think I've ever been this full in my life, and I mean that in the best possible way. May beamed, her pride radiant. Another satisfied customer, she said softly, her eyes glinting with affection. In that moment, surrounded by laughter, full plates now cleared, and the comforting hum of a home reborn, the mansion no longer felt like a safe house or a temporary refuge. It felt like family.